Hey guys, in this video we're going to be working on some problems out of your practice packet that are estimating the quotient or the answer to a division problem to determine if the answer is reasonable. So with this we're going to have to do some rounding, and I recommend that you have your practice pages with you or your math notebook, one of the two, because you need to be able to take notes and work the problem out along with me. So the first one here, this is 273 divided by 3, and I have the problem written over here and on the other side as well, because you can see the difference in the squiggle sign here. The little squiggles here are not an equal sign. This is the estimation about sign, and so this means that we're estimating over on this side. Compare that to the regular equal sign over here. So this is going to be the exact answer over on the right hand side. Exact. That looks really bad. Let me do that over. So this is exact, and this is the estimate. So when we estimate something, we like our numbers to end in zeros. That's because zeros are friendly. They're easy to work with. So we're going to look at our number 273. It's our largest number. It doesn't have any zeros in it, and we want to make it friendly. So unless the problem specifies that you need to round it to the hundreds place or the tens place, you can round this as you feel comfortable. Now you could try rounding this. If we were to round this to the tens place, that means we're going to look over to the right, and the 3 is going to tell the 7 to stay the same and drop down to 70 basically. So 270, if you think about it on a number line, here's 280. And here's 270, 275's in the middle, and 273 is right about here. So is 273 closer to 270 or to 280? By far it's closer to 270. So that's a way that you could think of rounding too. So essentially one of the ways that we could do this is we could say 270 divided by 3 is approximately. And we had 270 for one reason here, because 27 and 3 are basic facts. And we know that when you divide 27 by 3, that gives you 9, all right? And then we have a 0 left over here, right here. So our answer would be 90. Now, if you were to do this long division style, let me just shrink this for a second, you would do 270 divided by 3. 3 can't go into 2, but 3 can go into 27 9 times. Three does not go into 0. Done. Okay? So our estimate over here should be about 90. Now, if you decided to do this and if you decided to round 273 to 300, it would be 300 divided by 3, which is approximately 100. So our actual exact answer should be somewhere about 90 or 100. An estimate is just a guess. It's not going to be exact, but we are going to find the exact answer now to see how close our estimate was. So this is just straight division. Does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? So we have 273. It's the dividend. It lives inside the den, divided by 3. 3 cannot go into 2. That divisor is bigger than the first number there. But 3 can go into 27, so we divided. And then 9 times 3 is 27. Subtract. Check. Is our subtraction answer smaller than the divisor? And it is, so we're good to go. Bring down our 3. And now we start over. How many times does 3 go into 3? Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So our 1 goes up top. We divided. We're going to multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. Check. 0 is less than 3, and we don't have anything to bring down. So our exact answer is 91. Our estimate was about 90 or 100. So yes, our estimate of 270 divided by 3 or 300 divided by 3 is a pretty reasonable estimate of the actual problem. So you can stop here if you feel like you're getting the hang of it, or you can continue the video on to our next problem. Here's our next problem. We have 2,350 divided by 8. And notice once again that I have the estimating equal sign over here, and then I have the plain equal sign. So we're going to do the estimate on this side and then the actual on this side to see if our estimate was reasonable. And estimating quotients are helpful, so it gives you an easy way just to round in your head really quick to see if it makes sense or not. And it's really helpful when you get into these really harder math problems. So 2,350, we like things to end in as many zeros as possible. And you can see that we have a 0 here already, but this is still messy to do. I can't do 2,350 divided by 8 in my head. My brain just doesn't think with numbers like that. I want to see how many zeros I can get over here to make it much easier and get down to those basic facts to work with. So thinking of that, I'm going to try to think about what numbers go along with 8 that are kind of close to my numbers over here. And I know that 8 and 24 get along, so I'm going to ask myself, is there any way that I can make a 24 over here? And I can see that my number is kind of close to 2,400. In fact, if I think about it, here's 2,300. Here's 2,400 on a number line. And my number is 2,350, which is actually kind of right between the two. But my rounding rules would tell me that if I'm rounding to the hundreds place, I'm going to round up because the 5 is going to make the 3 go up to a 4. So I'm going to round this to 2,400. And now I'm going to divide it by 8. And this is where I was going with that. Here's a basic fact now. 24 divided by 8, those are fact families, and 24 divided by 8 is 3. And then I have these two zeros over here that are left over, and I'm just going to plop those on. So my answer should be about 300. Let's check to see what it is actually. Make sure you're following along in your notebooks. Eight cannot go into 2, but 8 can go into 23, and it goes in 2 times. So we divided, now we're going to multiply. 2 times 8 is 16, making sure my digits are nice lined up. So that's 7. Checking, my 7 is less than 8, so I'm good to go. Bring down the 5. Really important to keep everything lined up here. 8 goes into 75 9 times, because 9 times 8 is 72. So I divided again, multiplied, going to subtract, check, 3 is less than 8, we're good, and now bring down my 0, keeping everything nice and straight. And 8 goes into 30 3 times. So I divided, I'm going to multiply, subtract, check, 6 is less than 8, so we're good. So my answer here is 293 with a remainder of 6. And as you can see, our estimate of 2,400 was pretty reasonable because 2,400 is pretty close, or I'm sorry, our answer of 300 is pretty close to our answer, our exact answer of 293, remainder of 6. So once again, this is mostly just rounding, and if you find that you need rounding assistance, talk to your teacher. You can either stop the video here or you can go on to one more problem. All right, we're going to go ahead and do some money now. I'm going to divide my page in half. Make sure that you are still following along in your math notebook. And let's do greens for money. I'm going to do $317 divided by $2.49. So let's say you had 317 cantaloupes and each of them were $2.49. First off, sign me up because I love me some cantaloupes. Second off, that's a pretty good price. Okay, so let's estimate first. We want to know about what the cost of each cantaloupe is going to be. So a couple of things here. We need to round both of these numbers this time because we're not working with just single digits. There's more than one number for both the dividend and the divisor. And I want to get things as close to zeros as I can. So first things first, let's go ahead and mess around with this 317. And since we like to have as many zeros as possible, let's either round it to, the nearest hundreds place here. So this is going to tell us, we look off to the right, the 1 is less than 5, so the 3 is going to stay the same, and the rest of the numbers are going to become a 0. If you think of that on a number line, here's 300, here's 400, because we're counting by hundreds if we're rounding to hundreds. 350 is right here, and 317 would be right about here, so definitely would round down to 300. So we have 300 so far, and then we have to round $2.49. So let's round to the nearest dollar. And is $2.49 closer to $2 or is it closer to $3? Well, let's look here. We're going to round to the nearest dollar. So let's look off to the right. And that's a 4. So 4 is less than 5, which means the 2 is going to stay the same. And all of the other numbers are going to go to a 0. Okay? So we have $3 divided by $2 now. And because we haven't talked about dividing with decimals or anything like that, and this is the only case in which this works, because we have a decimal point and it's a whole number, we're just going to get rid of those decimals for now. Because we know that 2, like that, is the same as $2 like that. So we're just going to get rid of them to make this not so complicated. Okay, now let's see if we can make any sense and maybe some fact families out of our numbers here. So I'm going to take a look at my first two numbers here, and I have a 30 and I have a 2. And I know that 30 divided by 2 is 15. That's something I can do in my head. And then I have a leftover 0 right here. So I'm just going to plop that 0 down here. All right. So when we actually do this problem, it should be about 150. So if we actually figure out this problem now, we have and if you want to know something interesting, when you divide by decimals, you can't. So we have to get the decimals over. So that's 2 spots, which means that we're going to move our decimal over here 2 spots. I know that's super weird and you don't need to know that, but in case you wanted a little fun fact, there you go. So we're going to add zeros there and our decimal points there. Okay, so 249 goes into 317 one time. All right, we check 68 is less than 249, so let's bring down our next one. And I'm estimating that that's going to go in twice, just based on some facts that I'm doing in my head. So 249 times 2 is 498. Subtract. Check, 182 is definitely less than 249. Let's bring down my last 0. And I'm going to guess and check that it's going to go in about maybe 8 times. Let's try an 8 and see. This is where guessing and checking comes into play. So that was too much. 1992 is bigger than 1820. So I know that instead it's not going to go in 8 times, it's going to go in 7 times. So that's what that check is there for, to check on that. So 7 times 249, 63, it's 28. So 1743. With a remainder of 77. So it's about 127 and then a remainder of 77, which is not terribly far off from 150. So that's how you estimate with money.